Adventure, released in late 1979, early 1980 by Atari, is arguably one of the greatest console games to have ever been released. Its simplicity in its design, its elegance, and creative nature are what sets it apart from the rest of the field at the time. In this video, I will be reviewing the original Atari 2600 game Adventure, as well as touching on a few of the homebrews and hacks that have followed over the years. I also cover the variety of ports this game has had to other gaming systems. What is it about this game that has captivated so many young gamers upon its arrival? To start with, it was different than all the other games out there made for the Atari 2600 at the time. It wasn't a space game or even a shooter. There are no explosions, heck, there is no scoring at all. Instead, it is a third-person adventure game where it is your task to find the enchanted chalice that has been hidden deep within the kingdom and bring it back to its rightful location. The home castle, so to speak, from which you start out the game. There are 3 such castles in Adventure, the gold, black, and white, each with their appropriately colored keys. Once unlocked, each castle contained their own areas to explore. This is the first action-adventure role-playing game on a console. This game created a whole new genre of computer games that combine elements of action with elements of adventure, called action-adventure. It is also the first game to sell over 1 million copies in this new category. Your character is a little square block you can move around the game board with and pick up objects. Your character has no name. The fact that your character's graphic is not detailed out does not take away from the gameplay. Instead, you are forced to use your imagination. Mind blown! This was the first multi-screen Atari game. In fact, there are many screens within the game and its kingdom. You are given tools to help navigate your way through the screens. You have a bridge, you have a sword, a magnet, you have various colored keys that indicate which castle doors they open up. Objects such as the sword, bridge, and keys are attracted to the magnet. They will mysteriously float over to the magnet, even through solid walls. But there is also the pesky black bat which is flying randomly throughout the kingdom, picking up and dropping off random objects and even stealing the item you are carrying. If it gets close enough to you, you can grab the bat along with whatever he happens to be flying around with and take him with you on your quest. The Black Bat was the first video game character to have 2 distinctly different states, agitated and non-agitated. When agitated, he will go after an object to swap with. When he's not agitated, he will be content with the object he's holding. Wait, it can't be that easy. The game's designer, Warren Robinett, had one more trick up his sleeve, those pesky dragons. After all, there had to be a reason the sword was included in the game. Admittedly, the dragon is not an intimidating creature to look at, but if you look closely, you'll notice his stomach is just large enough to swallow you whole. These dragons, which at first glance do resemble ducks, can be vicious, requiring you to need your sword in order to complete your adventure. They too are sort of magical, in that the laws of physics do not apply, meaning they can navigate through walls to kill you. One interesting game mechanic is, even if they do eat you, the game does not end. Instead, you are alive within the stomach of the dragon. If the bat happens to fly by, you can still grab it, or he can grab the dragon, giving you a ride through the kingdom with a bat's eyes view. However, once you are eaten, you cannot be uneaten, but you can press the game reset switch to reincarnate yourself back to the home castle. This will also revive any slayed dragons. Your retrieved items will, however, remain where they were prior to hitting reset. This is one of the earliest examples of any video game using the game continuation concept, which 30 years later is now common, actually a necessity amongst video games. Back to the dragons. There are 3 in Adventure. Yordle, the yellow one, is the slowest. Grundle, green, is a bit quicker, and Rindle is red, and he's fast and extremely aggressive. They are what I would call a minor hurdle that must be overcome to complete your quest. When a dragon is attacking, they make a loud sound. When you kill the dragon, there's a sound like the air going out of a balloon, and when they eat you, there's a sound like yummy. There is one more sound in the game, the sound for picking up and dropping objects, which sort of sounds like but-a-link, picking item up, and double-link for dropping an object. Exploring the kingdom is the next and perhaps most enjoyable task of all, for you need to learn the map to figure out where the chalice is and to know how to return it to its rightful home, the Gold Castle. There are a couple of mazes or labyrinths that must be navigated. A few labyrinths are structured in a way that simulate being in the dark, only revealing a small part of the maze at a time. This is one of the first games to contain real mazes, multi-screen ones at that. these were a blast to figure out. There are 3 difficulty levels in Adventure. Level 1 is the easiest. The red dragon is missing and the kingdom is much smaller. This is the introduction level, just to get you acquainted with the game before graduating to the more difficult levels. Level 2 is the full game, with the red dragon and all the objects are always in the same location. Level 3 is the same as Level 2 but randomizes object locations. Adventure is credited with being the first game to contain an Easter egg or hidden feature. Unbeknownst to Atari, the game's programmer Warren Robinett hid one of these eggs within the game. At the time, he thought he might get himself in trouble for doing this, being that this particular Easter egg took up approximately 5% of the game cartridge's memory space. What he did instead spawned a whole new category for video games. It is now common for a video game to contain many such Easter eggs. This is the first video game Easter egg that I have ever found on my own without having prior knowledge of it. At the time, I didn't even know it was an Easter egg, but I thought it was pretty cool. As of the date of this recording on the Twin Galaxy website, the record holders for each of the 3 game types are as follows. Game 1, Difficulty B, Fastest Completion, Mike K. Morrow, 33 seconds. Game 2, Difficulty B, Fastest Completion, Jason Dyer, 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Game 3, Difficulty B, Fastest Completion, Jonathan A. Ewing, 40 seconds. Adventure is a game that I often return to, even during the period when I didn't own the console via emulation. It has a lot of replay value, especially on the 3rd difficulty level where all the items are randomized. This is a great game and is currently number 1 on my top 10 list of the greatest Atari 2600 games. It sparks your imagination and really kicked off a whole new generation of video games way ahead of its time. Highly recommended. Adventure was released with 2 different box styles shown here, the Atari one, and here, the Sears one. There were also several variants of the cartridge label releases shown here. Adventure is a fairly common game. It can be found on eBay, Amazon, Craigslist, yard sales, retro game shops, etc. That concludes the review portion of my video, but if you want to learn more about Adventure, check out the Classic Gaming Bookcast by Chris Federico, aka Chris++ on Atariage. In it, there's a chapter on Adventure, which happens to be my favorite chapter, in which he articulates his memories on Adventure way better than I can, and it really resonated with me. His book sells for only 99 cents, so I highly encourage you to pick it up. Also, there is a must-watch video with Adventure's creator Warren Robinett, which was recorded at last year's Game Developers Conference, GDC 2015. In it, he discusses the game's technical design challenges and even does a Q&A afterwards. He didn't just write the game, he came up with the idea, designed it, coded it, and even lied to his boss about working on the project to get it done. It's really an amazing story. Once you've mastered Adventure, but you still want more, there's a ton of hacks out there. Here is a list I have found of a few of them on Atariage. Atariage user Nukey Shay has a hack of the game where he made the game into an 8K version with several improvements such as more dragons, additional items, and map layout changes. Check the links below. Atariage also sells a hack of the game called Adventure Plus for $20 on the Atariage store website. There's a game called Adventure 2 for the Atari Flashback 2, and there's a version of Adventure 2 that's made for the Atari 5200. Adventure has been ported to or re-released on several platforms, including Atari Classics 10-in-1 TV Games Standalone Hardware Unit 2003, Atari 80 Classic Games in 1 on the PC in 2003, the original Atari Flashback in 2004, the Atari Anthology for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2004, the Atari Flashback 2 in 2005, Game Room for the Xbox 360 on the PC in 2010, Atari Greatest Hits for the Nintendo DS and iOS in 2010, Atari Flashback 3, Atari Flashback 4 in 2011 and 2012, and the Atari Vault for the PC in 2016. Check out the descriptions below for links to more exciting content related to this game. And thanks for watching.